So these are the portrayals of the African literature. First is modern social and political realities. So this includes the discrimination to and by the African people. So discrimination by African people includes racial discrimination, gender equality, and discrimination towards women and their social groups. Next is examine both African and non-African value systems. This involves comparing of African literature to non-African literature, such as the Western literature in the U.S.
Excuse me for the interruption, Ms. Olar. Before we proceed, I'd like to ask a question to our participant, Ms. Jasmine. What do you think it is the relation of non-African value system to African literature according to what you have understood?
From what I have understood, it is because Africa has a long history of being colonized. Therefore, they have assimilated some foreign culture and value system. As their literature reflects their culture, non-African value systems are also inevitably discussed.
What a wonderful insights. I see that you have understood well. Thank you for the response. Ms. Alar, you may continue.
Okay, thank you so much. And lastly, base themselves on indigenous traditions and distinctly African views. So, mainly the base of the African literature is about their tradition and their own African views. So, the African culture and tradition is much evident in their literary pieces. So, the African literature has various purposes. First is amusement. So, for some, the African literary serves as a recreational activity. Next is to educate the young. So the elders use literary pieces such as stories to instill values, to instill characteristics, to instill knowledge to the young. Next, to validate ritual and belief. So some belief or some rituals are being questioned. So in order for that rituals to not be questioned anymore, the elders create stories or reasons or legends on why those traditions exist. So next, to promote conformity to cultural norms. So this is to promote good manners, right behaviors to the cultural norms that the African people has. Next is provide psychological release in an institutionalized manner. So some author uses literary to release, psychological release. It may be their emotions toward a certain topic, towards a certain events, but in an institutionalized manner. So the African literature has two literary forms. First is the oral, second is the written. So the oral literature is also called oratory. So these have flourished in Africa for many centuries and take a variety of forms, including folktales, myths, epics, funeral dirges, praise, poems, and proverbs. Next is the written literature. So written literature in African literature includes novels, plays, hymns, and tales. So these are the types of the oral literature in African literature. First is the myths. So myths are usually explain the interrelationships of all things that exist. So these also provide for group and its members a necessary sense of their place in relation to their environment and the forces that order events on earth. So if you have remembered the purpose of literary that we have discussed a while ago, so myths falls under that classification, because myth usually explains the interrelationship, such as how African literature explain traditions that they have. So example is Mamiwata, Ogbanhe, and river snakes. Another type of oral literature is epics. So epics are elaborate literary forms usually performed only by experts on special occasions. So they often recount the heroic exploits of their ancestors. So epics, much like Western epics, the African epics also tackles about the heroic acts or heroic deeds of their ancestors. So this type of oral literature is being done on special occasions. So if you will picture out this on the modern times, this type of oral literature is like storytelling, like what we have now in modern times. They are storytelling the heroic deeds of their ancestors or of their leaders. So examples are Bayadiha, a West African epic, Eri, a West African epic, and Lianha. This is a Central African epic. Third type of oral literature is the funeral digers. Digers, chanted during funeral ceremonies, lament the departed, praise his or her memory, and ask for his or her protection. So, this type of oral literature is being done during funerals. So, this is like asking for protection towards the deceased and honoring his or her memories while he or she is still alive. Next is Proverbs. So, Proverbs are short, witty, or ironic statements. So, metaphorical in its formulation, which aim to communicate.
Oh, I'm